Hello, everybody. This is Mike. I know I'm streaming at the last minute here, and of course, it's probably the middle of the night for everybody. For me, I've just moved, which is one of the reasons you haven't seen me for a while. I've just moved. I moved from Australia, and now I'm back in the United States. I'm living in Florida. So it's 9:45 in the morning here. Anyway, I thought I would say hello to everybody, and I was going to take a look at some comments and some questions that have built up over a while. So let me once again let you know who I am and what this channel is about. This channel is devoted to people who have been in or are currently in a romantic relationship with somebody who suffers from borderline personality disorder, whether that be treated or untreated. And even though people with BPD do sometimes show up on my channel, and apparently some of them do gain benefit from it, that is not necessarily my goal. My goal is to help the partners. My experience is that there really isn't a place to go for partners of people with BPD where the partner has an opportunity to truly understand the dynamic of what they go through. So if somebody comes to this channel and they are a borderline, the best way to make use of this channel is not to see whether or not I am explaining your experience correctly, because I'm not a borderline. The best way to make use of this channel is to try and understand what it is like for what they call neurotypicals, which is people who do not suffer from a personality disorder, what it is like for us to be in a romantic relationship with somebody who has BPD. So before I go any further, in case somebody wants to accuse me of stigmatizing borderlines, let me just say that borderline personality disorder is, I would say, based on my looking at it, I can't imagine a worse, more painful way to live. So I have nothing but compassion for what they go through. And the things that I say, bear in mind, that is all said in the context of understanding that there is treatment for BPD, and there are ways for people with BPD to be in a state of healing. Now, BPD is a very severe mental illness. It is a personality disorder. It cannot be cured. Anybody who says that they've cured themselves of BPD is at best mistaken. There's no such thing as cure from BPD. You will always split. But there is a state of recovery that can be accomplished after years of therapy and years of hard work, where you can learn, if you have BPD, where you can learn how to control your symptoms or manage your symptoms. So having said that, my experience is that it is quite rare. And that isn't because it's impossible. It's because the nature of mental illnesses are that they tell you that they don't exist. So I don't know of anybody with BPD who woke up one morning and thought, you know what, I have borderline personality disorder. I'm going to go run to therapy and get it fixed. No. It's denial is part of the dynamic. And so it becomes extremely challenging for people with BPD to get into therapy and stay into therapy. So having said that, for those of you who are dating or are in love with somebody who has BPD, usually untreated, undiagnosed, even if it is diagnosed, they're not fully putting themselves 100% into their therapy, then what you are guaranteed is horrific pain. And So we're going to talk about that today, that the love that you experience with borderlines is really based in unresolved childhood, deep childhood trauma. And so what you're doing is you're reliving, you're digging up that old trauma and you're re-experiencing it with an unconscious desire to fix it this time. So, I say to people often that, people talk about, dating borderlines as though they were just walking down the street one day and then they accidentally stepped in a bear trap. Oops. Or they're walking down the street and they're perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't have any issues. And out of nowhere flies down this perfect angel who seduces them. And they are incapable of resisting the seduction of the perfect angel that has come to them. That was certainly my experience as well. But that's an illusion. The truth is that you unconsciously sought them out just as much as they sought you out. And the external experience is that the borderline will target you. It's ironic that borderlines suffer from fear of abandonment and anxiety, and so they're afraid of rejection. But they're the ones that are chasing after you. If they see you and you stimulate that feeling in them, they will be the ones chasing after you. They will be the ones calling you. They will be the ones asking you out, all of that. So that's another thing that's very attractive about borderlines, because those of us who are attracted to them tend to be very skittish and very shy and very afraid of rejection as well. So we don't often put ourselves out there and ask out, seek out relationships. So it makes it easy on us because they come to us. And that's, again, kind of the irony there. So I was going to look at some comments today. Let me just go a little bit. Let's see. What was the title that I put to this? Why your BPD partner causes you such deep anxiety. What are trauma bonds? All right, so let's talk about what trauma bonds are. There are some catchphrases that I didn't like in the beginning of making this channel, and trauma bonds is one of them. And the reason why I didn't like them is because once you put something into a phrase or a catchphrase or a meme, then it becomes a justification. So in other words, people, when, over the past couple of years as I've had this channel, people come on and I point out to them, listen, you're responsible. You're the one that sought this out. You're not a victim. And they'll want to talk about the trauma bonds. I couldn't help myself because of the trauma bonds. And so trauma bonds, that phrase becomes a justification for them to create a scenario where they're a helpless victim and they don't take any responsibility. But that phrase is actually quite good. Trauma bonds. The bond that you have with your borderline is completely, totally created based on trauma. And the trauma first occurred when you were a child. Your mother, most likely, had some kind of narcissistic personality disorder or had some narcissistic tendencies. Maybe she was a borderline, maybe she was a narcissist, maybe she had some other kind of problem, maybe she was extremely codependent, maybe she was an alcoholic, a drug addict, something like that. There was something going on where your mother was unavailable to you emotionally. And you, of course, never got that need fulfilled. Now, you didn't become borderline. And the reason for that could be genetically. Maybe you didn't have the genetic predisposition for it. Or you might have gotten just enough love, just enough connection so that your brain didn't snap. Because that's what happens with borderlines and narcissists, by the way. the easiest way to kill an infant, not that I'm saying you should do that, but the easiest way, the fastest and easiest way to kill an infant is to simply not give them any attention. There have been numerous experiments throughout history, going back, hundreds and hundreds of years. One in particular was an English king who wanted to find out whether or not Hebrew was the original human language, and he thought that if he didn't teach, if he had an infant, and if an infant wasn't taught to speak English, that they would, once they started speaking, they would start speaking Hebrew. And so he wanted to prove that. So he put some orphans on an island with some nuns, and he told the nuns on pain of death, do not interact with these infants. Feed them, clothe them, wipe their butts, keep them warm, but do not interact with them in any way. And his thought process was that they would grow up and then the first words would be Hebrew, and then he would know, oh yes, Hebrew is the first language. Well, what ended up happening is that every single one of those infants died. And so the easiest way to kill an infant is lack of attention. So if you have borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, it means that you had just enough interaction to keep you from dying, literally. And so to be a borderline means that you are constantly in this state of you are about to die from lack of attention. That is why they are so afraid of abandonment, because they're constantly having this experience. And because they're in a life and death state of trauma, they are incapable of actually allowing anybody to love them. If you do love them, this will stimulate them to go back to their original core wound, which they are constantly living. They never get past it. They're constantly living this wound of, I am about to die from lack of attention. And ironically, it is the feeling of love that creates that defense mechanism, and that's why they split. That's why they leave you. They leave you not because you didn't love them enough. You probably loved them. You probably did your job. The love probably reached them. And that stimulated them to leave because they're so afraid of losing themselves, because their fear is that, again, here's another phrase that people throw out, and it tends to minimize or make things more superficial, but they have a fear of engulfment, which means that they're afraid that they're going to lose control, and then you'll have control over them, that their love will make them incapable of defending themselves. But that's what happens with what they call neurotypicals. This is what happens with normal people. When normal people fall in love, that's why it's called falling in love. It's not called falling in control. It's falling in love. It means you lose control as you make yourself vulnerable to somebody. And to fall in love means that you are vulnerable to be hurt by somebody who has your heart in their hands. So this is the absolute worst fear of all borderlines. And so this is why they are incapable of loving you. By the way, if you can understand that they have a mental illness and that their continuous requests for you to prove your love to them, if you understand that that request can never be fulfilled, that they are incapable in their untreated state, they are incapable of being loved and responding positively to love. They're incapable of it. And this is the denial of the codependent. The codependent believes that at some point they're going to figure out the exact formula, which haunts back to your trauma bond to your mother, where your mother did the same thing. Your mother gave you the promise of love and then kept taking it away. And or your mother gave you the promise of love if you did something, you did this or you did that. And so then we get into the topic of transactional love. So ideally, with somebody who's healthy and loving, what ends up happening is the mother rewards the infant simply for existing. Whenever the infant has any kind of feeling, whether it be emotional or physical, they poop, they burp, they scream, they cry, they're happy, they're sad, they're hungry, they're cold, whatever their physical or emotional experience is, the mother always rewards the infant for that experience. And this is what the borderline never got. The borderline was hungry, was cold, was lonely, and there was nobody there. Literally nobody responded. Or they got shamed out of it. Be quiet. I remember reading one borderline on this channel saying she remembers, or that her mother told her that when she would cry, the mother would go and sit in the car because she couldn't tolerate hearing the baby cry. So that means the baby, that person as an infant was crying and nobody was responding. That creates a horrific trauma that never heals. So transactional love, I got off topic there. Transactional love is instead of being loved because you exist, because you have a feeling, instead of that, your love is transactional. Your value, your worth is based on what you do to meet somebody's needs or somebody's demands or somebody's desires, not based on the fact that you exist. And I've shared this before, but there's a video I saw of a woman who claims to have died and come back, and she had cancer. She was dying of cancer. She left her body, died for who knows how long. And when she was in the afterlife, her immediate feeling when she left her body was that the universe gave her this feeling of, you are loved simply because you exist. And she was like, oh, what a revelation. I thought my love was based on what I do. And then she was sent back, and when she came back into her body, she knew she'd be healed from cancer because her cancer was based on the impossibility of constantly seeking love and approval based on what she does for other people. So if you are a borderline or a narcissist or a codependent, you have this same problem. It means that you believe that love is transactional. It's not based on the fact that you exist. It's based on what you do. So you had a mother or a primary caregiver who gave you the message, whether directly or energetically, gave you the message that your value is based on how you meet my desires. And so you bring that when you grow up as an adult, you go into life, and you're constantly filled with anxiety because you have this feeling that in order to be loved, I have to meet people's needs. And if I don't meet people's needs, I have no value, which equals I don't exist. Remember, this is all about existence. For a healthy child, the healthy child, isn't afraid to be alone, because even though they might feel lonely, they don't have a problem being alone, because they've been introjected with this feeling that simply because they exist, they have value. They exist. My brother, who now, I haven't talked to him in years, but it is my belief now that my brother was a borderline comorbid narcissist. And what he used to do, I remember as a little kid, he was older than me. He was 5 years older than me. He was really frightening. Really frightened me as a kid. He would walk up and down the hall, and whenever he was anywhere near where I was, he was constantly making noise. He had to make noise. He would slam doors open and close. He was constantly making noise. And I can remember just being traumatized because, my abusive older brother would be walking around. And it reminds me of people who ride motorcycles. They can't ride, like for me, if I was to ride a motorcycle, I would get an electric one because they're really fast and they're sleek and all that, and they're quiet and they're cool. But no, motorcyclists get the loudest motorcycle they can. When they start up their bike, anybody within a 5-mile radius can hear them. And if they're on a long trip, anybody anywhere near them goes, oh, there's a motorcycle. And it reminds me of that. It's sort of like if they don't let everybody know they exist, they're afraid they'll just simply disappear. And so I forget where that came from, but that's part of the difference. Anyway, you have this trauma bond where you were taught that if you don't perform in a certain way, and if you don't accomplish something, meet somebody's needs, you don't exist. That's why you chose the borderline. Your experience is you were walking down the street one day and the borderline put a rope around your neck and seduced you, and you couldn't help yourself. And oh my God, they love bombed me. How could I not fall in love with them? But in reality, your programming is that my worth is based on what I do. And I don't have anybody in my life demanding that I do something for them. Therefore, I feel like I don't exist. I don't have any worth. Oh, look at this cute little kitten. This wounded kitten who's so needy, who needs so much love and so much attention. I now have value. I'm going to take care of this little kitten. And in your fantasy, the little kitten, in this case the borderline, because you are giving them meeting their needs, they, like a little kitten, will bond to you and love you forever. And that is the promise that they give you in the beginning. That because you are perfect, because that's how they see you, because you are the best. And that's a quote from mine. My borderline ex called me the best. You're the best because you do all the things. And she'd say it in a little baby voice. You're the best because you do all the things. And because you're told that, you think that's it. Now I'm going to be loved forever. I'm going to be safe. And I'm finally going to get the validation I've been looking for. And that validation is in your body is a sense of anxiety. It's a deep black hole of anxiety. And having somebody with so much need, that is so deeply damaged and needs love so badly, and they've decided that you're the one that's going to love them. And you go, oh my God, I've been waiting for somebody who will ask me to perform this task so that I will have validity and get loved back. That, oh my God, I finally have purpose. And this is what happens when you meet, and within the first few hours, all of a sudden they're perfect for you. They look exactly the way you want. They talk the way you want. They have the same philosophy about life that you do. They have the same religion or the same spiritual practice or the same hobbies, or you'll come up with some superficial thing that makes you feel like, oh, they're perfect for me. But the reason why they're perfect for you is because you need to be validated based on what you do, and you finally found somebody who's so codependent and so narcissistic that you feel valued and loved. But the truth is, you're not being loved for who you are. You're being loved for what you do. And ironically, that one thing that you do that the borderline needs the most is the one thing that is going to drive them away from you. And if you can understand that they have a mental illness, and I keep stressing that because they do not respond rationally. A rational person responds to love with commitment. Somebody who's neurotypical, when you love them, their response is to then feel love and to feel a desire to bond further with you, which results in commitment, which results in stability. It results in them being there for you. It results in them wanting to make commitments and follow through with them. That is the opposite of what happens with a borderline. When you respond to a borderline's needs and you meet their needs and you give them love, their initial response is to enjoy that, followed immediately by their need to defend themselves from the abandonment which they are sure is coming, because that's all they know. And so their response to your love is to destroy you. So that's my long-winded version of explanation of trauma bonds. Let's take a look at some... Where are we going here? Take a look at some comments here. First, let me just see. Is there anybody on? Yeah, there's a few people on here today. Excuse me. Let's take a look at some comments here. So bear in mind that when you come onto my channel and you think that this happens very common. Somebody will come onto my channel, they're codependent, and they have not heard anybody really address their experience. You go online, there's no shortage of psychologists who talk about borderline personality disorder from a clinical perspective. There's no shortage of borderlines with their own channels talking about their perspective. But there really isn't a whole lot of place to come and hear somebody explain what it's like. The majority of the places that I've found online that do that are these really, I mean, we're talking about chronic codependents who are extremely untreated, and they end up creating these super empath channels, the Heyokas and the super empaths, and and if you want to, feel free to go watch those channels, Heyokas and super empaths and all that. And what you're going to find is a group of really damaged, untreated, massively, chronically untreated codependents who are usually in a great deal of pain and in a tremendous amount of rage. They're full of rage. They want to talk about the narcissist and how the narcissists do this, and they will make videos about how to defeat or destroy the narcissist. Or my favorite one is they're going to make videos about how the narcissist realizes you were the one, which is pure fantasy. That's never what happens. Whenever a narcissist discards you, or if you walk away from a narcissist, and this includes borderlines, because sorry about this, BPDs, but borderline personality disorder has been recognized as simply a form of narcissistic personality disorder. Whenever you are discarded by a narcissist or a borderline, they forget about you. Out of sight, out of mind. So this nonsensical idea that you've left the narcissist and now the narcissist is pining for you, and that the narcissist realizes that you were the one, that truly loved them and they can't live without you, is pure nonsense. If they are chasing after you, it's simply because you are perceived by them as being a source of narcissistic supply. You are their drug. But the moment that they have the feeling that you are not available to them, or you will not meet their needs, or somebody else comes along, you stop existing. So this is the ironic thing about the whole empath scenario. And what you're seeing is their fantasy, what they want, what the codependent, because empath is just another word for codependent. What the codependent wants more than anything is to be the one and only, the most perfect lover that somebody can't live without. That is the the codependent's fantasy, that they will become so indispensable, that their love is so perfect and so overwhelming, which is why they call themselves super empaths. They can't just be empaths. They have to be super empaths. In other words, super it means above, superior. They're the superior lover. That's all that they do, that they don't have any personal needs, that their entire existence is about giving to others, which is, again, chronic transactional love. That they don't have any value in and of themselves, that their only reason for existing is to meet somebody else's needs. And if they can do that, then they have value, and then they can tout themselves as being the super whatever they are. Anyway, let's get to some comments here. Somebody said, it's helpful to borderlines if their therapists have empathy. And this is obviously coming from somewhere. This is that's such an obvious sentence. I responded to it by saying it's helpful to anyone, not just borderlines, if their therapist has empathy. That seems like a fairly obvious truth. But my suspicion is that, I don't know, this person could be a borderline. But this is the thing. Borderlines, in case you're listening, what borderlines are constantly complaining about is that nobody truly understands them. But the ironic thing is the moment that you find somebody who does truly understand you, you create this negative fantasy in your head where we're all out to destroy you. And so you continue to create this false reality that nobody ever understands you, nobody cares, which just isn't true. This is the difference. So the difference between the codependent and the borderlines are codependent. But if we're talking about the difference between somebody with a mental disorder and a neurotypical, somebody who doesn't, they're both codependent. The difference is that the codependent who does not have a personality disorder feels very anxious. They know what reality is, but they don't like it. So they're in a constant state of anxiety because they can't dissociate. So if you're a borderline, it means that you have the ability to dissociate from your feelings, to dissociate from objective reality, to create your own fantasy. And neurotypical codependents don't have the ability to dissociate. And I remember one person, a borderline, came on and said, you don't know what it's like for us. If you knew what it was like, in other words, you have no idea what my pain is. It's so much worse than yours. And I responded with, you have no idea what I've been through. How would you like it if you had all of the pain that you had, but you didn't have the ability to split? You didn't have the ability to dissociate. You were forced to stay in that pain. Tell me which one is worse. I honestly don't know because I'm not trying to compete. But, there's been times when I wish I could dissociate. And I don't have the ability because I'm neurotypical. And so in case you don't know, again, if you're new to this channel, this is helpful to know. Borderlines forget. That is a real thing. They forget because they dissociate. They don't have an identity, which means that's like saying they don't have a hard drive. So imagine if you showed up every day on your computer and you were typing out messages and sending emails, but as long as your computer was on for that 24 hours, you'd have those emails available to you. But the moment that you shut it off for the night, those emails disappeared. All of your hard drive data disappeared. And then you woke up and opened up your laptop and all of the information from the day before was completely gone. That's what it's like to be a borderline. That's called dissociation. They dissociate. They literally wipe their hard drives clean. So when they wake up the next day, they don't remember what happened. They may have a vague memory that somebody who looked like them and had their name and sounded like them may have done those things that you're talking about. But because they don't identify with that person, they didn't do it. I remember my borderline looking me in the face after a 3-week craziness where I don't know what happened with her. She was on medication and did a lot of really, really crazy stuff. But the truth is that her mom was coming into town, so she switched into another facade, which is another identity. In fact, her whole appearance changed. She looked like a completely different person. And she was put together and everything was perfect and nothing, she's just like, what happened? And I thought she had gotten better. But the truth is that she had shifted to another facade, and this was the facade of the perfect daughter because her borderline mother was coming into town. And so because she had shifted facades, she didn't remember what she had just been doing for the past 3 weeks. And, I told her about it, and she says, oh, that's really horrible. I'm really sorry you had to go through that. And then I said, so you made this commitment to me. She did. She made this huge commitment and these promises. And then she said, I don't remember that. And I said, I do. Are you denying? No, I'm sure I said that, but I don't remember it. And the feeling behind that was because I don't remember it, I'm not responsible for it. So I'm not going to follow through with that. I'll only follow through with what I can remember. And so if you can understand that borderlines don't have the ability, they don't have the hardware. Their hard drive isn't capable of remembering the feelings that they had. And if they have intense feelings of love, by the way, they can dissociate from that. So one of the mistakes I made is that I became aware that they dissociated from uncomfortable feelings. Like when she was, feeling fear that I was going to abandon her, I could tell that she was dissociating, not knowing who I was and not knowing, and I would have to, try and bring her back. And sometimes I was capable of doing it, bringing her back, to herself. But I forgot what I was saying. But they cannot remember, and even if they do remember, it's not them. Many serial killers are borderlines. Sorry, borderlines, but it's true. Some borderlines who are comorbid psychopath, they become serial killers. Serial killers will not remember. There's numerous examples. I can't remember the name. I'm trying to remember the name of one of the most famous ones. But there was movies made about him recently where he's sitting there talking to his ex-girlfriend, and his ex-girlfriend is saying, "Did you do those things?" And he says, in all seriousness, "That wasn't me. I didn't do that." What he means by that is that I know that there was some guy that looked like me that did that, but it wasn't me. I don't remember doing that. I don't feel that. So they really mean it. I didn't do that. I didn't say that. So when your borderline tells you lies, like the next day when you know that they've been cheating with the milkman and they tell you a lie, which means something that doesn't connect with objective reality, which you think is a lie, for them it's not a lie because they don't identify with the person who did that. And so what they'll do is they'll confabulate, which is a fancy way of saying they will create a false reality that mirrors how they are presently feeling. And because their present feelings align with the confabulation, and because they don't remember, they will say, "No, that's not what happened. I was doing this." Or they'll come up with some reason about why they had to do it. The sky fell. You don't understand. The devil came out of the ground. And, so this is called a mental disorder. These are people who do not have the ability to have a continuous relationship with objective reality. Because in order to have that, you have to have a sense of self. So one of the reasons why you are so filled with anxiety is because you are falsely attributing to your borderline powers that they don't have. You want them, you need them to be rational. Which brings me to my next subject, which is this is why you think they're evil. Because if you can tell yourself the reason why this person did that is because they lied to me and they're evil, what you don't realize is, number one, it'll make sense to you. You will feel like, okay, that makes sense to me. And then the next thing you'll do is then that will mean that they can love you. Because if they chose out of their powers of choice to do an evil thing to you and they remember doing it, then that means they can choose to love you. And so those of you who are filled with rage, filled with righteous indignation about your borderline and what they did to you, and your need to convince me that I'm being too soft on them by telling them they can't help it, it means that you want them. You want them to love you. You're still attached. So I'll give you an example here. Here's somebody who says, I don't think English is their first language. This person says, thank you for your accurate information, but you still have very optimistic look. They hoovering and come back for getting something more. So in short, what this person is saying is that, no, you're wrong. They hoover you because they have a selfish need, which of course is true. In case you don't know what hoovering is a foreign word for vacuum cleaner. It means they're sucking you back in. And so as you know, the borderline will throw you away, and then magically a couple weeks later they'll suck you back in. Either they'll apologize, or they'll act like nothing happened, or they will promise you they'll never do it again, or they'll make it your fault, or something. They'll do something to bring you back into the relationship. And so I must have said something along the lines of how they can't help it. And so he's saying, no, you're being too kind to them. They do it on purpose. This is what he's really trying to say. But that's the need for that person to feel that is, number one, understandable because it's rational. He's trying to rationalize their behavior. He can't tolerate the thought of them being, having a mental illness, of being divorced from reality. He can't tolerate that thought because it doesn't make sense to him. And more importantly, he can't tolerate the thought that this person really didn't know what they were doing, because it means that they didn't see you, that they didn't value you, that they didn't love you, that they didn't understand you, that their love wasn't real. People can't tolerate that. So it's easier to see them as being evil geniuses who plan out your demise and do this to you on purpose, because then underneath that is the unspoken hope of, since you knew what you were doing and you had control when you were mean to me, now you can choose to be different. And if you don't, you're just an evil, bad person. And so what this person doesn't know is that by holding on to that, they hope that they can guilt the borderline into behaving, into being a good person. So you have to understand that. One of the reasons why you constantly need to see them as evil, why you're constantly going over how they lied to you, how they betrayed you, which they did, your need to judge that as being evil is your need to believe that they can love you, and they can't. That's why I keep stressing they have a mental illness. Let's keep going. There's another person who's been commenting over and over and over again. So let me be clear about what the point of this, and that's okay. You can leave as many comments as you want. I'm not judging them for that. But let's be clear about what this channel is about. This channel is about giving you the tools to heal. My hope is that you very quickly lose the need to watch my channel. I don't need you to be addicted to my channel, subscribe. I don't need any of that. I want you to have the experience that I had. I'm completely 100% healed from my relationship with my borderline ex. I have zero pain. I don't think about her. The only reason I ever think about her is because this channel. If it weren't for this channel, I wouldn't think about her ever. I have zero feelings about her one way or another. It's not because I'm in denial. It's because I've resolved it. I have no pain. I also have no longing. I look back on the relationship and I don't want to cry or get furious. I look back on the relationship and I realize that I was projecting onto her my unconscious issues, and she was projecting onto me that it was, it was a superficial fantasy we both had. It wasn't real. And I don't have any pain about that. And the reason that I have that is because I did the 4 things. The 4 things, as you know, if you've watched my channel, which I will share with you again, if you don't know what they are, the 4 things are: 1, you go full no contact. That means that you make it impossible for them to contact you. If you have not done that, you have not gone no contact, which means that you're emotionally still connected to them. Number 2, after going no contact, you go to www.coda.org, which is Codependence Anonymous, and you go to an online meeting or a meeting in person, and you work all 12 steps with a sponsor. That means you do it with another person. You can't do it by yourself. And then you become available to sponsor someone else. If you haven't done that, you have not done thing number 2. Thing number 3 is you work with a psychologist. Not a life coach, not just your basic counselor, a psychologist who understands cluster B personality disorders. And then number 4 is you do daily meditation, which is really just step 11. These are the 4 things that I did. This is what this channel is about. All of the talk that I just did just now has only one purpose, which is to give you something to relate to. So you can go, that's exactly my experience. So you don't feel crazy. It's not because I'm special, because there's nothing I'm saying that anybody who hasn't done the 4 things can also tell you in their own way. But the point of this channel is to do those 4 things. If you do not do those 4 things, in my experience, if you are a neurotypical, meaning you don't have a personality disorder, if you do not do those 4 things, then in my experience and in my research, you will have something that will always be unresolved. You will always have some longing, you will have some pain, you will be ruminating. It doesn't go away. When you get enmeshed with a borderline and your unresolved childhood issues get stimulated to the surface like that, and the abuse that they put you through will create, I call it a virus. It'll create a virus within you that will not go away. And so the only treatment for that is the 4 things. If you don't do the 4 things, at best some of your symptoms will go away, but they'll never be completely gone. There are people who have been on my channel who have gone 20, 30 years after they've been discarded, and they still think about their borderline ex. They still have pain associated with it. Or more likely, you end up dating multiples. You'll end up with another borderline or another narcissist or another alcoholic or drug addict. You'll end up in some other codependent relationship. So if you want freedom, do the 4 things. And so that brings me to the next person. There's been somebody who's been on the channel, and I feel for them, but they're constantly asking questions about their borderline ex. And so what happens is, when you come onto my channel and I let you know, do the 4 things, and if you do the 4 things, you won't need to ask me these questions anymore. If you keep asking me these same questions, then I'm going to respond in a way you're not going to like. I'm going to say, I've already given you the cure. If you go to the doctor and you've got some kind of bacterial infection, pus is streaming out of some wound, the doctor says, oh, you've got an infection, here's the antibiotics. Take the antibiotics and you'll heal. If you come back to the doctor a week later wondering, so the pus is coming out, but it's now changed to a dark green color. What does that mean? The doctor's going to say, what's wrong with you? I gave you the antibiotics. Why didn't you take them? Well, I read the bottle and I researched the antibiotics, and the doctor's going to say, you have to actually take them with water and food in order for the antibiotics to get rid of the infection, and you have to take the full course. So if you come onto my channel and you don't do the 4 things, I won't have any sympathy for you. And ironically, the hardest thing for you to do will be to do the 4 things. Not because they're hard, they're actually very simple. They won't cost you anything. You can find a way to do them for free. And but your it's not a mental illness. Your psychological issue, which is codependence, is working very hard to keep you in that state of trauma. You will have unconscious resistance to doing it. And so this is nothing new. So this guy comes on and keeps asking me all these questions about his borderline, and will the borderline do this, and will the borderline do that, and is this a borderline? And at some point he says, I can't find it here, he says, the reason that I ask is because I want to make sure she was a borderline, which is nonsense, because he thinks if I can figure out that she is a borderline, then I won't ruminate, which is not true. That intellectual knowledge does nothing for you. So those of you who come onto my channel or spend hours and hours scouring the internet, researching borderline personality disorder, with the belief that if you could just understand what BPD is, then you'll be okay, you are wrong. Your intellectual knowledge will give you nothing. It will not solve your problem. The only thing that I can do for you is to give you a space where you feel understood, and then you will have the motivation to do the 4 things. If you take that opportunity where you feel a connection to what I'm saying, and you don't follow it through by doing the 4 things, then it's basically a wasted experience, because you won't get any relief. You won't get any healing. Coming onto my channel and watching me over and over again, or asking me questions over and over again about my borderline did this, my borderline did that, what does that mean? None of that's going to heal you. It means that you still want them back. So at some point this person says that they just want to find out if their partner was a borderline. And the answer to that question is, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you were devalued. You were abused. You were abused in a narcissistic way. The problem is you, not them. The infection is within you now. You know, that's like saying you get bitten by a vampire, but there's this vampire antibiotic that you can take which will cure you, but instead you're going to spend all your time researching vampires. It's not going to get rid of the problem that you've now become one. The only thing that's going to fix you is that you look at what's wrong with you and you fix the problem. So I've given you what works for me, and that's the only thing I have. And if you don't take it, I can't help you. I can't do anything for you. Let's see, was there anything of value here that I wanted to talk about? All right, no, just people mostly complaining about borderlines and what they did to them and how horrible they are, etc., etc. Again, not taking any responsibility. So my computer is not plugged in, so I'm going to run out of energy here soon. I'll see if there are any questions. I haven't been on for a while, so I thought I would just... this person says, nah, man, loud motorcycles are easier to spot than a quiet one. That's my point. I understand what you're saying, that, a loud motorcycle is less likely to get hit by another car, but, don't bullshit me. A loud motorcycle, the whole point of that, it just happens to be that works out in your favor, that loud motorcycles are easier to be heard. But, they don't need to be that loud. So don't bullshit me. People ride loud motorcycles because they want the attention. Period. End of story. When has there been a biker who didn't dress and act in a way that brought attention to themselves? So, please. Bear in mind, this is a question and answer. I do well with honest questions. If you leave like this, an opinion, there's a good chance I'm going to psychoanalyze you and you're not going to like it. So the safest thing to do is to just simply ask me an honest question or share an honest feeling. If you have a question, usually write the word question, otherwise I won't see it. Okay, let's see what else. So somebody says borderlines. Obviously, this person C is new to the channel because he doesn't understand that or write questions. But he says something that shows something that I keep saying over and over again. He says borderlines will also drop you exactly like narcissists. And that's because borderlines are narcissists. Borderline personality disorder is a form of narcissistic personality disorder. And as has been said by many psychologists, borderlines are failed narcissists. What that means is that they tried to create, when they were infants, they tried to create this perfect fantasy world where they are perfect and are unassailable, which is a narcissist is, I am perfect, you must worship me as the perfect God that I am, or I will abuse you, or abandon you, or destroy you, or whatever. The borderline was incapable of creating that. So they vacillate between, they go back and forth between being a psychopath and this needy borderline. So when they split on you, they are acting out their unconscious psychopath. And when they are love bombing you, they are acting out their need for love and attention. It's confusing because you think one of them is a real, the real them. Somebody says, how can I just get the borderline part to interact with me and not the narcissist? And I explain, you can't have one without the other. If you're dealing with a borderline, it means you're also dealing with an unconscious psychopath that will come out and abuse you and destroy you. And that psychopath is the protector. When they feel afraid of abandonment and that fear becomes intolerable, they switch. And the psychopath will come forward, which is why you've talked to your borderline and you've seen their eyes change, right? Sometimes their eyes will change color. Their face will change. And you'll realize that you're talking to somebody else. And you'll be able to see in their eyes that that person looking back at you doesn't know who you are, doesn't recognize you. And that's because they've switched. And now you're dealing with the other half of them, which is the unconscious psychopath. So welcome to the channel, C, but as I continuously say on my channel, borderlines are narcissists. So it's not that they're exactly like narcissists, they are narcissists. It's a different form of narcissism. And then you say that, although if borderlines are narcissists, then it makes sense. Ducky Time threw $50 at me. Thank you. That was very kind of you. I appreciate that. All right. Ted Bundy. Yeah, that's who I was trying to talk about. So if you got a question, write the word question. Bear in mind, I just want to point out to you, everybody here, borderlines, narcissists, and codependents are incredibly entitled. There's a sense of entitlement. Even though codependents don't have a narcissistic personality disorder, the fact that you are a codependent means that you are narcissistic. It means that you are very entitled. You are very childish. You are very selfish. That's the nature of it. And this comes out in this. This comes out in this, just typing things out, giving me half of a question and not responding to my request, which is please write the word question in all caps so that I can see it. It means that, of course, this is the way YouTube works. It makes people into very entitled children, but it also comes out in these things, and this is why I do that, because it's like, what makes you think I'm going to see your question above everybody else's comment that's being blurted out? If you write the word question, I'll see it. So this person asks, how come they take contact again after months if they discarded you last time? So watch my channel. That's called, it means you don't understand the nature of borderline. So learn more about it. That's a very basic question. It's called hoovering. So learn more about that so you can understand what that is. And then look here, the same person is then wanting to throw a judgment on them. If they get discarded you the last time, even though they got 24th hard drive, what makes them take contact again? What do you mean? I don't understand the question. Why is that a mystery to you? Is it memories and feelings that come up? No. They can remember. I remember my borderline talking about one of her exes, and then she was pining about him in front of me, which was a pretty mean thing to do. But she was saying, but he really loved me. And there was no awareness that she had discarded him. She didn't have any awareness about, her being there for him. And she did the same thing with me. When she hoovered me back, she said, and I realize now that you were good to me, that you were, it was all about what I did for her. Had nothing to do with her feelings for me or her remembering of me. So no, they don't remember you. Your delusion is that you've done something to get them to remember you. They just need a fix, and they have an awareness that you may provide that for them. So there's no memory of your love or what you did. If there is, it's just superficial, because now you'll be somebody who will give them what they want. But spend more time on the channel so you can get educated on what it is that this thing's all about. Ducky Time says, Ted Bundy was never diagnosed as a narcissist. I personally don't care. I don't care what their diagnosis was or wasn't. Narcissistic personality disorder wasn't a recognized disorder until 1980. Yeah, so I don't care. I see him that way. Based on the way he's been portrayed, he seems pretty clear that he was. But my experience, same thing with the other guy, and I forget his name. The guy who used to eat his victims. He was clearly a borderline. That he would invite men over to his house, and he would do it because he wanted to connect with them. He felt a connection. He wanted to have sex with them, wanted whatever. But then the moment that they decided to leave, he would snap and kill them. And then he would keep their body, in the house and interact with the body, because that he was a borderline. Now, he was very extreme. He also had other serious problems. Not all borderlines are serial killers. In fact, almost all of them are not. But it's the same thing. He couldn't tolerate being rejected. It wasn't that he went looking for a victim to kill. No, he wanted to connect. He wanted to make love to some guy and have sex, and he thought he was going to take home his next boyfriend. Then they had to get up and leave. They had to get up and go to work the next day, and then he couldn't tolerate the being rejected, so he killed them. And this is what the borderline does to you. They don't physically do it; they emotionally kill you. I'm running out of battery power, so I'm going to have to end this pretty quick here. Let's see if there's any other questions. C says, what's funny? I've been blocked by you twice in the past. So do the 4 things, and then you won't have to get blocked by me. Okay? You're obviously an untreated codependent or something. And whatever it is, the other nonsense that you're saying is meaningless. If you act out aggressively and don't respect the boundaries that I leave, like writing the word question, etc. If you don't do that, and if you don't show me that you're following my directions, which is do the 4 things, then I have no interest in interacting with you, and I will continue to keep blocking you. So it's completely up to you how this plays out. Um, what else? NYK Gaming, I've seen your name before. You're not new to the channel. Why are you asking a question that you should know the answer to? How come they don't remember your love? I just told you why. They dissociate. I mean, why is a nonsensical question. Why they don't remember? It doesn't matter why. The only thing that matters is that they don't. So if you haven't done the 4 things, it's going to be hard for you to accept that. If you do the 4 things, you will come to that awareness without anybody really telling you. You'll just come to that awareness. Oh, they weren't capable. I mean, you don't expect a dog to be able to play chess. They're not capable. The dog may want to play chess, but he can't. He doesn't have opposable thumbs, for one thing. Your borderline doesn't have the ability to remember you. Accept it. It's very painful. When you can deal with that pain, when you've done the 4 things, you won't need to ask that question anymore. It won't matter to you. I don't care why my borderline did what she did. I don't take it personally. She has a mental illness. She can't help it. I accept that. Your inability to accept that means you're still attached and you're still wanting them to love you. It means you're in denial. All right, so C, I'm just not interested in whatever it is you want to do here. Okay, that's it. And then you're asking the question again, NYK Gaming, then why would they hoover? So you're obviously in denial. You're obviously in pain. Why are you asking me? I can tell you haven't done the work. If you do the work, here's the point. The whole point of this channel is to give you the tools to heal. Do you want to be in pain? Do you want to be free of the pain? If you do, do the work. If you don't do the work, I can't help you. And if you don't do the work, you won't heal. And again, why would they hoover then if they don't remember you? That just doesn't make sense. I know. You're needing to ask that question. What you don't know is that I can see underneath that is a tremendous anxiety and need to be loved. This is unresolved mommy and daddy issues that you have to resolve. And it won't matter what I tell you. If I tell you why, if I tell you the exact mechanisms as if I knew, the exact mechanisms of why they don't understand, it won't take away your pain. It won't make sense to you. If you do the 4 things, you will answer that question. Marvin A says, again, you guys aren't listening to me. If you want to ask a question, what have I said? Write the word question. Why is that so hard? What does the blank stare mean? What is happening when they do that? I already told you. They're dissociating. Look up dissociation. They're emotionally dissociating. It means there's nobody home. They're trying to disconnect from the feeling. Whatever's happening to them, whatever feeling they're having is too overwhelming and they're disconnecting from it. And so that's the blank stare. There's somebody, you know, they're trying to, you know, if the borderlines are this close to having dissociative identity disorder, which is multiple personalities. And that blank stare you see when people with multiple personalities are changing personalities. They're switching gears. So what you're seeing with a borderline is that the gears just keep slipping. Blank stare. All right, that's it. New York Gaming. I don't care if you think I'm being rude. I'm not on here to get you to love me. I can tell you haven't done the work. I'm happy that you gain more information, but you're not listening to me. That information will not heal you. Do you want to heal? The information that I give out is here for one purpose, and that's to give you a connection so that you feel like you belong. Then The only thing I can do is say, here are the tools. Go use them. I can tell you haven't done them. You can feel offended by that all you want. I don't care. I don't need you to like me or dislike me. I am here to help you. I'm like your best friend. I will give you the truth whether you like me or not. So if you want to heal, do the work. And if you do the work, you won't have to ask the majority of these questions. So that's it. I'm done arguing with you. You say, educate yourself. You haven't listened to me. Educating yourself on the topic will not heal you. And educating yourself on the topic is not doing the work. Doing the work will heal you. So don't bullshit me. I'm being clear with you. If you want to get the most out of the channel, do the 4 things. I actually don't want you to follow the channel. I want you to follow the channel for as long as it takes for you to do the work and then heal and go live your life. If you're doing the work, you won't need to watch my channel anymore. Having said that, you're welcome to watch it all you want. If it takes you 5 years before you get up off your ass and go to a CODA meeting and get a sponsor and work the 12 steps, that's how long it takes. And in the meantime, I have no problem making you, responding to you in ways that make you feel like I'm being rude to you, like I'm devaluing you, which I'm not. All right, that's it. I'm running out of battery, so I got to go. And this is just turning into just codependent drama craziness, so I'm out of here. All right, guys, that's it for me. I wish you all the best. Happy holidays. Stay safe. And I will see you next time I see you.